Township Parsippany-Troy Hills Township Council Agenda Meeting, February 5th, 2013. Public invited, public participation. Meeting called to order by myself at 7:30 p.m. Please rise for a flag salute. Mr. DiPiero, if you would.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mr. Karifi.
Here.
Mr. DePiero.
Here.
Mr. Ferrara.
Here.
Mr. Nelson.
Here.
Mr. Stanton.
Here. Others present, Mayor Barbario, Jasmine Lim, Business Administrator, Paul Cazarelli, Assistant Business Administrator, John Inglesino, Esquire, Township Attorney, Yancy Ziermis, Township Clerk. Purpose of this meeting is to set the agenda for the regular Township Council meeting, February 12, 2013. Formal action may or may not be taken.
Statement of compliance. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided in accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meeting Law by filing the notice in the office of the Township Clerk and by posting the meeting notice on the bulletin board at the municipal building on December 10, 2012, where it has remained posted since that date. A legal notice appeared in both the Daily Record on December 14, 2012, and the Star Ledger on December 13, 2012, and it was forwarded by fax to other local newspapers and local radio station on December 10, 2012. Note, council meetings are videotaped and air on cable public access channel 21 at 1 p.m. on Saturdays. They're also available for viewing at www.parsippany.net.
Okay, ordinances, second reading, everything set for next meeting?
Yes, Council President.
Okay, status of adopted ordinances. Ordinance 2012:49, adopted date January 15, 2013. Mayor's action January 18, 2013. Effective date February 7, 2013. Discussion reminders, scheduled meetings. February 12, 2013, 7:30 p.m. Regular meeting, public invited, public participation. March 12, 2013, 7:30 p.m. Agenda meeting, public invited, public participation. Minutes for approval, 10/9/2012 agenda meeting, 10/16/2012 closed session, 1/3/13 reorganization meeting, 1/3/13 agenda meeting, 1/15/2013 regular meeting. Okay, Mayor proclamation?
Well, that's not till next week.
Okay, these are both for next week?
Yeah, both for next week, but I do want to report back to you, Council President.
Okay.
Myself, Councilman Karifi met with James Wargo in the 2-gate hall, and as of last week, there's a stop work order. They went higher than that the planning board approved, so now they have to remedy this situation. I contacted Mr. Wargo. I told him there was a stop work order on the project, and that I will keep in touch with the engineer department to let him know what actions are going to be taken.
Good, good. Just a quick question. The trees, with the number of trees and stuff, did they violate, or that was all?
That was more, the height is what they violated on the building, which I think, don't quote me, was closest to his property.
Okay, okay, good, good. Okay, administration, everything set for next meeting?
Yes.
Okay, engineer report, February 2013, Mr. Creefy?
Okay, there's all or no change except for major soil moving permit extension, Morris Corporate Center, 7 block 136.01, lot 1. The planning board granted a 1-year extension to the major soil moving permit until December 10th, 2013. This office has no objection to the extension and recommends the Township Council extend the permit and agreement until December 10th, 2013 by resolution.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone against?
Aye.
Okay, so that'll be set. Okay, resolution will be set? Yeah. Jasmine?
Yes.
Okay. Township office and committees for discussion. First one, proposal from Councilman Jonathan Nelson for the creation of a law department. Jonathan?
Thank you, Council President. Does everybody have a copy in front of them?
It was in the mailbox.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Council President, in 2005, I started looking at it, the size of this township and how much the then current attorney was billing the town. And I know this was 2 administrations previously, but the legal fees were out of control. So I remember back in 2005, I went in search of other towns throughout the state that were similar in size to Parsippany. And I had some notes, but nothing ever came of it. Several months ago, I picked up on the idea, and I looked at 2 towns that are very similar in size and as far as geography and population and the ratables to Parsippany, and I found 2 towns. One is Wayne Township, and the other one is Howell Township, and both those towns have their own in-house legal department. What I'm proposing isn't really anything different than what we're set up now, but it's really primarily to just set a cap on how much the township attorney would make. The only proposal I'm asking everybody to consider is that we make the township attorney a part-time township employee with an assistant township attorney and having a paralegal/clerical worker working full-time in town hall who would be accessible to the administration, the clerk, and the department heads. Mr. Inglesino's sitting to my right, and I'm sure he's poking daggers in my eyes, but this is nothing against Mr. Inglesino's work, quality of work, or I have to say I wasn't even thinking about him when I originally had thought this up. But Parsippany has over 50,000 residents. We're by far the largest township in Morris County. We're actually one of the largest townships in the state. And I'm hoping that my fellow council members would just not take any action today or next week, but maybe in the coming months we discuss this. I respectfully ask that you create a small committee of a few council members and some people from the administration just to look into it and see if this is something that's worthwhile doing. I do believe that in the long run it could probably save us several $100,000 a year. But I don't think I'm at that stage right now to say definitively that we are there, that we will save that, but I think it's something that we definitely should take a look at. And that's it.
In the meantime, can you get the contracts of Howell and Wayne?
Yes, I can get that to you and email it to you. Sure.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I had this discussion with Jonathan. I'm all for saving money. Saving money is a great thing, but I don't want the township to become penny wise and pound foolish looking at just the bottom line. Okay, we gain a lot from having a law firm with interfaces with other towns, other municipalities, with state government, with county governments. Okay, there's a broad depth of knowledge in municipal law that one person in one town does not get exposed to. And one person in one town would not have the contacts. I'll just give you one example. We were being sued by the DEP for violations at our trash incinerator many years ago. We were being fined the scrubbers in the incinerator. We had trouble getting them, and our emissions were slightly above normal for a short period of time. And we filed the forms and reported ourselves, as we should do. All the forms were filed. And several years later, they decided to fine us $300,000 for this violation. We fought that in the courts for many years. And several of our municipal attorneys got involved in that. When the Dakota's firm became our municipal attorney, they have contacts down at the state in DEP and in almost every other department down there. And they were able to successfully fight that and have that fine eliminated, saving us $300,000. Now, I guarantee you, no local lawyer working in town as a town employee is going to have the clout and the contacts to represent us properly. The other thing is, we have sometimes 2, 3, 4 different issues going on at the same time. One person can't handle it. Then what do? We outsource to other firms when our in-house guy is overloaded, his plate is overflowing. There are a lot of things that when you just look at the bottom line cost, you think you're going to save. In a township our size, with what goes on in this town, okay, I don't think you're going to save money. I think you're going to be less efficient, and it's going to cost you the same or more.
May I respond just real quickly?
Yeah.
I agree. If I felt that the township would be hamstrung in any way on the pool of attorneys, I would agree with you in 1 second. What I'm suggesting is that when I say township attorney, I'm putting that in quotations, the office of township attorney. I'm really, for the way that we would be set it up, it would be a part-time position in name only, so we would have the ability to reach out for firms like Mr. Inglesino and DeCoitis, but we would basically just be saying that here, this is the flat salary that we're willing to pay on a yearly basis. I believe that most of the big firms in the state would be more than happy to work on a flat fee on a yearly basis. If my intention is not to pull from recent law school graduates who have a limited experience. That's not my intention at all. I do know that other large townships that do have the in-house attorneys. I mean, there's some of the largest firms in the state who are working for the towns. Yes, they are township attorneys, but we're not taking away their ability to maintain their private practice at the same time.
The thing that scares me with that, though, if we have an in-house attorney and we have to reach out to Mr. Inglesino and his firm, and I might be wrong on this, I think the fees per hour aren't going to be the same what we're paying now if he doesn't represent the town. And I think that's the same with any outside attorney firm. I think we're going to be paying a lot more per hour.
What about having someone from that larger firm here, on staff here, from that firm, but they would be based out of?
How would you minimize pricing, and it would still be the same exact fees at the end? That's the problem with it.
Well, that's what we would have to explore to see if that would save money.
In no way do I want to hamstring our ability to find. It's awkward talking that we're talking about searching for attorneys because we're not. But I'm not trying to hamstring the township's ability to find quality and to find the best attorneys out there. I really believe that the best law firms in the state who do municipal work would be more than happy to to work on a flat fee, and also in the proposal that I'm putting there is provisions in there for matters of litigation where there is money that would be paid out for that on an hourly basis.
Mr. Farrar?
At the end of the day, do you know at the end of the year what Wayne or
I know how much
Okay.
Wayne is paying.
No, I'm not saying what they're paying. If there's a conflict and you're going out and you're hiring a different Mr. Anglesino at $300 or $350, I'm not speaking for him. I don't know what he charges. Okay, I'm not asking you what they're paying for that lawyer. What I'm asking you is at the end of the year, do you know what they're paying?
Not
If
just
there's a
the-
conflict and they have to go outside and get an outside attorney.
Well, we have the
That's
same
all.
thing. We have conflict
No, I
attorneys as well.
understand that. That wasn't my question. Maybe I'm not making myself
I
clear.
do know.
I'm saying I'm going to use hypothetical numbers. You
Okay.
got this attorney for 100,000. 50 cases, 20 cases come in front of you and they have a conflict. You have to go out and get another attorney at $300 an hour. Do you know at the end of the year what the legal bill is for Wayne or Howell?
Not just for the.
With all the
The
conflicts
total,
and everything.
the total.
I have the total legal bill for
And what
Wayne
is
from
it?
last year. Last year, it was a little under $500,000.
I think we pay less than that.
In most years, you do pay less than that. That's correct.
The only problem with me,
I think the
So there
first
goes
year-
your savings.
Our first full year here, the entirety of the legal bill was $370,000.
Yes, because I remember Mr. Mesmer commending you, Mr. Angelsino. Can you get it lower?
Well, and a lot of that, of
I'm not
course,
lying, Roy. I remember that.
when you're represented by a firm, though, when
That's
you
all
have
I'm-
more than one attorney, some attorneys have different strengths, and it's definitely a benefit to the
No,
town.
but I'm
So
willing to hear
Jonathan,
it.
if their total legal bill, their total legal bill is $500,000, where's the savings?
It's, I'm saying,
All right, hold on. We're not, listen, I'm not picking
you know,
on
I
you.
wasn't, I
I'm
wasn't,
all
gonna- I
for it.
wasn't going to
No,
start
no.
saying numbers, but I
I'm
do know
all
how
for
much.
it to save money. I'm just asking, I wanted the facts. I wanted the complete
What was our
facts.
total legal bill last year?
Our total legal bill last year was,
Well, Mayor or
I'm gonna make, I'm
Asman?
gonna wait for everybody to,
Okay.
before I
Okay.
start making my
Mayor,
comments.
yeah, I appreciate
First, I
that.
want to just, before, you know, and I wrote some bullet points down over for the last meeting, and I thought it was going to come up, but I really, before any types of things, proposals become public, I wish a councilman would meet with the administration on matters and consult me before, you know, stuff like this goes to the media, so we can discuss if there's, you know, come to an agreement. But first of all, we have, in my opinion, we have an outstanding township attorney who, together with his partners, associates, and staff, provide excellent representation to the township of Parsippany-Troy Hills. Our township attorney, and these are the fine lines of things, receives no pension, no health benefits, and works for an hourly rate of a fraction he commands from the private sector. With all that we have going on in the township, I am proud to report my township attorney has billed Parsippany residents $200,000 less than the previous township attorney over the comparable three-year period. So actually, my administration has cut legal fees. Now, if we have an in-house attorney, and I can tell you, a lot goes on in Parsippany during the daytime. We're 50,000 residents strong. We have 150,000 really residents to 175,000 residents in the daytime. If we were to develop an in-house legal department, and in my opinion, you're going to have to do that if you have an in-house attorney, there are numerous costs that the township would incur. Space. Well, where are you going to put this attorney, this in-house attorney?
And his staff.
And this, right, I'll get to that. The legal needs of the town the size of Parsippany is far greater, in my opinion, than any one attorney could handle. In order to meet the needs of the township, we would need to hire multiple lawyers with public salaries, with benefits, and with pensions. We would need to hire skilled legal staff because there's a lot of research that goes on in cases when the township, when the township's either being sued or an everyday operation. You'd have to include secretaries, paralegals, with all the benefits and pensions. Frankly, we would have to probably build, in addition to the municipal building, to have a legal department costing taxpayers millions of dollars. In addition, we would have to provide computers, supplies, insurance costs, and other costs that accommodate this legal department that I have read about. Another point, right now, if our outside lawyer messes something up, our township attorney has malpractice insurance to make our taxpayers whole. If we have an in-house attorney and he messes up, we have no recourse. The taxpayer gets stuck holding the entire bag. There are many of the reasons why the overwhelming majority of New Jersey municipalities use private law firms as their township attorneys. Better representation at a lower cost. In fact, many counties, including Morris and Somerset, are moving to the private sector model because even at the county level, it makes financial sense to hire outside firms as opposed to in-house attorneys, and all the costs that come with the type of operation. I am looking forward to keeping our quality of legal representation at a high, and the cost low. I get to see the everyday operations, what goes on in the township, who's suing, and sometimes, to be totally honest with you, suing frivolously for things in the township. And it gets very frustrating. But if you don't have professionals that handle municipal law, you can get yourself into a lot of trouble. And I am not willing to take that chance. I said it, over a 3-year period, we saved $200,000 with the township attorney that we have now. It's cost-effective, and in fact, in my opinion, I don't think we can afford to go to an in-house style type of attorney. Thank you.
May I respond a little bit? Mayor, you bring up some very valid points. I am not suggesting that we would be preventing the administration from hiring a firm like Mr. Inglesino. I'm not even suggesting that his office would be in Town Hall. The only employee that I would recommend that we would have in Town Hall would be one paralegal/clerk. Mr. Inglesino's bills are reasonable compared to previous administrations. People may be shocked to hear that, but that's true. The numbers that I ran for his firm for the last few years, for the last 2 years, was somewhere in the neighborhood of between $500,000 and $600,000. Is that about right, Mayor?
I think,
It's somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah, the average would be closer to 5
Yeah, somewhere in between
for
there.
3 years.
Okay, so for 3 years, we're talking in the low fives for a 3-year average. That would be fair. Does it work? In my heart, I believe this is the right way to go. If I thought that it would prevent us from hiring firms like Mr. Inglesino, and I don't want to even throw any other firms out there because he's our attorney, so I'm just going to use that. If I think that it would prevent us from hiring quality firms like Mr. Inglesino, I would never suggest it. I think it's a good way to get a grip on our budgeting, and I think it's a good way for the administration and department heads not to have to worry in the back of their heads, because it's only human nature, about wondering in 60 days that they have to justify, each email or phone call conversation that they had and how much they're going to be billed. Again, all I'm requesting is the council president to create a small committee to look at this a little deeper. And at the end of the day, if it works, great, and we can all get on board, and if not, Mr. Inglesino is still our township attorney, and all's good.
Okay. Anyone else? Discussion? We'll look at we'll talk about the committee. Okay, next up for discussion, proposal to remove fence on Route 46. I know, Mr. Inglesino, you replied to something that I sent you on this?
Yes, there was an inquiry made about the fence that the state had put up in the median of Route 46 some years ago, which was done in response to a request by the township after some deaths had occurred from pedestrians crossing Route 46. And there was a request apparently by a resident that the fence be removed because it was also, in addition to serving as a deterrent to pedestrians who may cross Route 46 at that dangerous location, that it also may be serving as a place where refuse would collect. From a liability standpoint, my recommendation would be not to remove the fence. There has already been a death at that location, at least one, since the fence has gone up. Our research indicates that there hasn't been any more deaths. And there was consideration that that area was really, a dangerous condition that would encourage, or at least pedestrians were crossing Route 46, as we understand it, fairly routinely before the fence was implemented. And although municipalities enjoy immunity under the Tort Claims Act, if they have knowledge of a dangerous condition and don't remedy it, then liability could attach. So there would be at least a liability issue and concern that would be raised by removing the fence, knowing that arguably the condition prior to the erection of the fence was a dangerous condition that the fence has appeared to remedy. With respect to the refuse, I think just arrangements should be made somewhere, somehow, it's not a legal issue, to ensure for the cleanliness along the fence line.
Well, sorry.
See, my issue is it's not stopping the people from crossing. I've gone back and forth. Now they go under it. Now they have the hole enough to go under. They go over. So to me, it's not doing anything. It's basically just a fence. And
Well-
to me, if there's a liability, why isn't the fence going all the way up? I mean, that's outside Taco Bell, people crossing out there. I mean, it's one spot, one person with the fence. You would think it'd be going straight up 46 all the way up there.
Council President,
Yes.
if I may, okay. Mayor Luther requested this without the knowledge or consent of the town council. I would have been opposed to have that fence be put there in the first place. However, the point that Mr. Inglesino is making is valid. I hate the fence. It's ugly. I've seen some people throw their bikes over the fence and then climb over themselves to cross, okay? It's not stopping anybody from going over, not even with a bicycle. It's not stopping anybody from crossing if that's what they want to do. But the point that Mr. Inglesino is making is if we were to take the fence down and someone else gets killed there, then our liability is there because we've removed what could be a safety thing by taking the fence down.
I don't mean to say that, I wouldn't say that the liability would be there, but I would certainly say that there would be
It would be there
there would be
more
an
than
argument.
if we had never put the fence up to begin with.
There would certainly be an argument.
Yeah.
You'd be in court, fighting that issue, and the question is, on the balance, would you rather not be in court fighting that issue, or would you rather take the fence down? And that's a policy decision that I leave to
Yeah.
you.
Okay.
See,
All right.
my only comment is it's illegal to cross there. You're not allowed to cross there, maybe put the signs up. So if you're illegally crossing the street and you get hit by a car, I think the liability shouldn't be on the town whatsoever.
Mike, I want to echo what you said. Liability-wise, the fence doesn't go all the way up Route 46 as it is now. So 20 yards up the road, you cross the street, somebody gets hit by a car, who's liable? Could they turn around and say, why didn't you put the fence all the way up Route 46? Because right now, like you said, there's holes underneath it. People go under it. They go over it. All it does right now is collect garbage. You drive down there, there's newspapers, there's coffee cups. It looks horrible right now. It's ruining our quality of life in that neighborhood right there for those people because it's just an eyesore, in my opinion.
And I agree with that. And I wish we had never put it up. And if it had ever come to the council, I would have pushed as hard as I could to not have the fence go up. But now that it is up, I have concerns if we take it down and someone gets killed there, that we're more liable than if we had never put the fence up to begin with.
Mr. President.
It's the same kind of concept we have up at the Knoll Country Club. You know, some of these golf courses in Pennsylvania, they have lightning warnings. When they blast the horn that there's a lightning storm coming, okay, everybody must get off the course, and they sound these horns. And some of the golfers up there will say, well, why don't we have this at the Knoll? And when we looked into it, what we found out was if we don't have a warning system and someone gets hit, they should know that they don't go under a tree or stand out there with the golf clubs and an umbrella in a lightning storm. I mean, that's common sense, but some people might do that. But they're there at their own risk based on what we have as instructions at the Knoll. If we had a warning system and someone didn't follow it, then we would be more liable than if we don't have a warning system. That's what we were told.
Mr. President, it's my understanding, we never put up the fence. We just, the previous
The mayor
administration,
requested that the fence be put there.
and the state put it up.
And the state put it up at the mayor's request.
So I assume that the administration right now, or the council doesn't have the ability to remove it either, since it's not our fence.
No, I believe
No,
we
we-
do, Abby.
No, I
We
think
can
we would have to.
request the state.
We
So
would request the
we
state.
can ask them to remove it, but we can't remove it ourselves.
That's right.
So we can request it, but the state doesn't have to say yes.
That's correct.
So at the end of the day, if the state removes the fence,
At our request, I think we're more liable than if we. never
what
put it up.
about a resolution saying that we don't like that fence?
I'm not a lawyer, but you know what? I think we're more liable if we take that fence down and someone gets killed there.
Let me just give you a little history on it as well. When I got into the office in 2010, one of the things that I wanted to do was take that fence down. But then I went into the archives and I found out, as Councilman DePiero states, that the mayor then requested that fence be put up for safety purposes. and because of a death. And now I think, since the township then was for safety purposes, I don't know, I mean, listen, I agree with Councilman DePiero on this, that I think you have the possibility of make the township more liable if something were to happen. Like, who knows? I mean, you don't know that for a fact, but that being said, once I saw the letter, I said, you know what? I'm not going to put the township in a precarious situation.
Mr. Griffey?
Actually, it's a question for Mr. Inglesino. Is just up Route 46 from, let's say, LA Fitness and the Pathmark there, where there is no fence, could we be just as liable if somebody were to get hit crossing there and say, well, hey, you didn't have a fence there. If you had a fence, why didn't you put the fence all the way up? So you should be liable because you didn't put a fence up over there as well.
No, you wouldn't. As I indicated a few moments ago, Councilman, the law is that municipalities enjoy immunity except with respect to dangerous conditions upon which they have knowledge. At this particular location, you have knowledge that a death occurred by somebody crossing the street at that location. So at that point, the township was on knowledge, and apparently, I haven't seen the letter from Mayor Luther, but apparently Mayor Luther indicated by the sending of the letter that he believed that that was a dangerous location, which is why he wanted the fence specific to that location, because he had knowledge of a potential dangerous location because the death occurred there. Other places on Route 46 where you haven't had similar instances, you don't have knowledge or any reason to believe that that poses a dangerous condition. And again, the law provides you with immunity, except one of the exceptions is with respect to dangerous conditions upon which you have knowledge. That argument would arguably apply to the location where the fence is erected. I think it's a stretch, much more of a stretch, to make that argument in other locations on Route 46 where similar unfortunate incidents have not occurred.
Do we know of any that have occurred? Any other deaths?
I know there's been at least one or two going up without it.
Since
On Route,
Yeah, the whole thing, that's why I'm saying.
so
it's
there
the
have
same.
been others on Route
John,
46.
can we look into maybe
On-
signs or something to put up and have the state put, you're,
Right.
to take away liability somehow? Because you're breaking the
Yeah,
law
Mike,
across,
tell me.
you know what I mean? You're breaking the law across it.
We have laws that we have cross areas where they're supposed to cross, and if they break the rules, it's
That's why I'm
their
saying.
responsibility, not ours.
I think what Mr. Inglesino's saying in lay terms is, we could take the fence down. It's just that
He's
there's
telling
potential
us-
exposure.
Well,
That's
I don't think
that's
we,
re-
I don't think we
that's
should
really
take
what it
the
comes
fence
to.
down once it's up.
I have a question, Mr. Anglesino. Who owns Route 46, the county or the state?
That's a state highway.
Okay, so why can't we ask the state, you put up this fence, I understand that Mayor Luther requested it, can you fix the holes so the rabbits don't get through? And then can you clean it up?
Absolutely.
That's, I think, what I would like to do, if it's okay.
Probably
Take a
also
straw
talk to the
poll.
sheriff and put it on the SLAP program rotation.
Okay. I think that would be a good idea. Fix the fence and get somebody to pick up the garbage.
Okay,
Jonathan, what do you
else?
think?
Yeah, Mr.
Mr. Councilman, I think, what do I think? I tell people, people tell me when they just come onto Route 46 from Route 80 and visiting Parsippany from there, it reminds them, and this is no offense to my friends in New York, but it reminds them of Yonkers. It looks terrible.
In the meantime, we could ask to clean it up and fix the fence.
See, to me, if a guy walks up the street from where the fence is and gets hit there, he could, somebody with him could turn around and say, I'm
Yeah.
going to sue you because you had the fence up there. We
You know,
would have crossed down there. It
You know,
works both ways.
Council President, I agree with you. I don't like this fence at all, and when you mentioned this to me the other day, when I was driving by there last night, I made mental notes of where the holes in the fence are, and actually where the person who was killed crossing Route 46, that's right where that hole is right now, because I know there are truck drivers who stay at the Red Roof Inn, and late at night they want to cross the street to go to Dunkin' Donuts, and then you have by the gas station that tries to cross over to Route 46. Those are the two primarily the highest trafficked areas. And yeah, it's very simple for people, and the fence isn't doing its job. But I understand what Mr. DiPiero and Mr. Inglesino were saying is, we asked the state, and when I say we, the previous administration, the township asked the state to do something because it wasn't safe, and now we're asking the state to say we made a mistake. And I don't know about that.
Okay, well, for the time being, look into, I guess, cleaning it up and fixing.
I think that kind of letter would probably be better served coming from the administration rather than sending lawyer letters down to the state for that purpose.
Yeah.
Mr. Council President?
Yes.
I do have one
Okay.
thing to report upon. I was getting very excited about all the conversation about saving taxpayer money tonight, so I wanted to share some news with the taxpayers of Parsippany-Troy Hills related to an investigation that our office was involved in with the FBI and with an independent consultant that we hired on your behalf. Back in June of 2010, the township received a telephone bill from AT&T in excess of $395,000 for international calls made primarily to Taiwan and the United Kingdom. That same month, the township received a telephone bill from Verizon in excess of $14,000 for calls made primarily to North Korea. The calls were made from telephone lines originating from the township sewer department, and specifically those telephone lines attached to the voicemail system at the township sewer plant. As township attorney, those were forwarded over to me because they seemed peculiar, and those bills certainly seemed high. So we had consulted immediately with various law enforcement agencies and through contacts that both I had and others at my firm had, we knew of a company that should be hired as a consultant. By the way, all of those consulting fees appear in the legal line items, so those are fees that are paid to other consultants, not to my firm. But because we had to try to establish and maintain privilege, the company was actually hired through the law firm, and they conducted a forensic audit of the computers and of the phones, and we then, they of course became very, very suspicious of what had occurred. We contacted the appropriate folks. I should say that the folks that we hired both served in the United States Secret Service and worked in the cyber forensic and cyber terrorism unit, so they were very highly trained and qualified professionals to perform this kind of work on your behalf. We then reached out to contacts that we mutually had at the FBI, and we learned that this was part of an international organized group, and the FBI was very happy to learn of this because it was fit in with their investigation. And those folks were apprehended. The criminals were apprehended overseas. The township has been spared the $409,000 or $14,000 bills, and there was various assets that were retrieved in connection with the arrest, which will be liquidated and used to reimburse victims such as Parsippany. And we are working to recoup monies that will make the township whole, both with respect to the cost of the professionals that we engaged on your behalf and with respect to legal fees that my firm incurred on your behalf as well. So I wanted to report that incident and let you know that it's had a happy ending. We thought for a while we would be in court with AT&T because even faced with this evidence, they just for some reason refused to write off the bill. And it got to the point where we came very close to having to sue them. But we decided that we would give this option a chance because we didn't want to get involved in a protracted and costly litigation when we felt that we would be able to achieve this result, and we're very happy that we were able to do so.
Kudos for saving us money. I have a question, though. Have any steps been taken to button up however these people got into that answering system to allow them to do this? Is there any way we can safeguard against having that happen again?
Yes, there was some concern that the vendor was sort of negligent in terms of the security aspects of the line, but this was a highly sophisticated group that was hacking into these lines, and from what I understand and what we've been told is that even if better security measures were taken, that they probably would have been able to pull it off. But that is an issue that has broader implications that at a later date I would like to discuss with the council.
Okay.
Okay. We have 3 resolutions for discussion.
Yeah,
Jasmine?
can I rewind even further?
Okay.
Go back to administration. The government energy aggregation program,
I have Bob Chilton here from Gable Associates. I don't know if council wants to hear more about that program.
I do.
It will have
Please.
a probably significant impact for our residents and our businesses in terms of savings. Bob?
Very thing, but I'll just kind of talk about program.
You're going to have to speak into the microphone so they can hear you in the back.
Yeah, you can pick it up, yeah.
Can you do me a favor? Yes, sir. Just state your name and whatever you do.
But I don't think the microphone is
mic's
on.
Yeah.
You gotta-
Better? There
There
we
you
go.
go.
Okay. My name is Bob Chilton. I am Executive Vice President with Gable Associates, energy consulting firm. Talk a little bit about government energy aggregation. This is a law that's been on the books for a number of years in New Jersey. Only recently, in the last year or so, has there actually been implementation under the law. Basically, what it provides for is a municipality to aggregate the residential customers in the town to do a bulk purchase of either electric power supply or natural gas supply. As you know, a number of years ago, the state changed the energy industry in New Jersey, allowed customers to shop for power supply or natural gas supply. The utility still provides the delivery service. Nothing changes in that regard, but the power supply and gas supply come from a third-party supplier. And there have been suppliers active for a number of years. Roughly 10 to 15% of residential customers statewide on average have switched to a third-party supplier. So the majority of folks have not taken advantage of it to date. And the municipal aggregation program, again, allows the municipality on behalf of the residents to take bids for power supply. The law and the regulations that the BPU passed require that naturally the price be lower than what the utility is currently charging for power supply. If there's no savings, there's no contract award. I mean, it's in the law, it makes sense anyway, obviously. Then customers are given the opportunity, they are notified, every residential customer in town who is not already on a third-party supply contract is provided a notice of the availability of this contract, the price that the supplier has offered through the bid, the savings estimate of how much this price is below the electric utility, the JCP&L price for power supply. And the customers have 30 days to decide whether they want to opt out of the program and basically then just stay on the JCP&L power supply service, or if they want to remain into the program. At that point, after that 30-day period passes, then the supplier begins to enroll the folks in the program. This, as I said, this just started. It's been somewhat active in a few states in the country for the past 2 or 3 years. It's taken off in New Jersey just this year. Our firm completed a program in October. We accepted bids for Plumstead Township, a small township down in Ocean County. We accepted bids. We got bids from 7 suppliers. The low bidder offered about a 15% savings for customers versus the electric utility tariff. That contract was awarded. We went through the opt-out process. About 5% of customers, for whatever reason, decided they didn't want to be part of it, and they stay with JCP&L. The remainder of the customers were switched to the third-party supplier. And again, that the January bill is actually the first bill that they're receiving under the new power supply. Again, the savings are about 15% in that regard. The way the program works from our perspective is basically our firm runs the whole program for you, follows the regulations, administers the bid, and our fee is just included in the bid price. So at the end of the day, if there's a contract awarded, the supplier has to pay our fees for our services. There's no out-of-pocket expense from the town. If there's no contract, we don't get paid. So there's nothing, there's no compensation from the township to the consulting firm. So that's a real quick overview. I mean, there's a lot of, I'm sure there's questions and there's a lot of issues to talk about. I'd be happy to entertain, but
Can I ask
maybe
a
that's a
stupid
quick
question?
introduction. Yeah,
Just a stupid question. It's not your.
no such
There's no stupid questions.
Absolutely.
If the utilities, the power companies and the gas companies
Yep.
are losing customers because these third-party suppliers can offer it for less, Why don't they lower their rates to be competitive?
It's a great question.
It's not a stupid question?
No, it's a very good question, because the first, what a lot of folks ask is, if the utility's going to lose money from it, lose customers, are they going to object to it? Are they going to treat me differently, et cetera? Really good questions. So here's basically how utility rates are set in Jersey. Since about 10 years ago, when the market was changed, the utilities now are wires companies, essentially. So they own the transmission and distribution systems. They go to the Board of Public
Yeah,
Utilities
they did
every
all the
couple of
work.
years. They go for a rate case, et cetera.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah,
They did all the work.
right. And they go to BPU for a rate case, and occasionally their rates are reset. The utility makes all of their profit, all of their return for their investors from the delivery service. Now there's power supply coming from the interstate power grid. The utilities, unlike in the old days, no longer own the power generating plants. They're now owned by third parties. There's a third party operating the interstate power grid. So the utilities, they sold off all their generating plants years ago. So basically, a company like JCP&L, what they do is once per year, they go out for an auction for wholesale power, for the power supply for all the customers on their system that have not already switched to a third party supplier. They get the power, they get a wholesale price for that. They tack on the retail taxes and things, and they pass it through in their rates, and they literally pass the cost through. So if they're buying power for 10 cents from the wholesale supplier, that's what they pass through to the retail customer. What that means is that the utility does not make any money or lose any money on power supply. They're making their power on their power profit on the delivery. And whether you buy your power from JCP&L's wholesale supplier or Con Edison Solutions or Hess Corp or a number of the retail suppliers out there, all those kilowatt hours of electricity are still flowing through JCP&L's local wires. The meter's still spinning. They're still getting paid for delivery.
So they get a
service.
piece of the action because it's their lines that
They make their money no matter who the supply
Okay,
comes from.
all right.
Yeah.
So they don't. So translated.
Thank you for explaining.
Yeah, and translated, they're indifferent to who you buy your power from. So because some folks ask, well, if I switch to a third-party supplier and the lights go out on my street, a pole goes down, are they going to turn the folks back on and still buy power from me, or are they going to prioritize me less? The answer is no, because there's no difference to them. They're totally indifferent. Arguably they want to get everybody back because the meter will start spinning again, and they get their delivery charges.
My understanding is the billing will all be the same.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if somebody's with JCP&L, they're still going to get the same bill. Over the years of my business, I can't tell you how many companies approached me
Yep.
every month they would evaluate 3 months worth of bills,
Yep.
and they would come in. Sometimes it saved a few dollars. Now I know you extrapolate that to thousands of residents in the township, but what kind of percentages are you looking at potentially to save?
The estimate, I mentioned the 15% savings for Plumstead.
But that's not off the total bill. That's just off.
That's off the power supply, which is about 2/3 of the bill. So that maybe translates to 10%. The way I put it in terms of dollars, for those folks, they are saving about $15 a month, about $180 a year. Now, the market always changes, and I like to be conservative. So my estimate when I talk to folks now is I'm estimating around $10 a month, about $120 a year, conservatively. So $10 a month, it's not going to change your world, but it's for doing nothing. As you said, the billing is the same, the utility still.
Right. But how would you get all the residents to sign up with
Well,
this?
the way the law is set up in Jersey, it's and in other states that do this, it's called opt-out.
Okay.
Right. So basically, all the customers who don't already have a third-party supply contract are in it, but then once the contract's awarded, the supplier is required to send a notification to every single customer. Here's the deal. Here's the price. Here's the savings. You have 30 days. If you don't want in, you just call us or send this card back, and you're out. You stay with JCP&L. Nothing ever changes.
And you would take care of that.
Yeah, us and the supplier. The supplier does the logistics. We oversee that. Correct.
To follow up on that, the 30 days are over and I want to get out.
You can still get out anytime. What happens is when the 30-day opt-out period is over, then the utility the supplier takes whoever's left. In my example, Plumstead, there were, say, 2,400 residential accounts. It's a small town. 5% opted out, so that's about 100. So now the 300 that are left, the supplier enrolls them in, they start in the program. Customer gets their first bill, they see what's going on. You know, they're saving money, but for whatever reason, they just don't want to be part of
Right.
it. Call up, bing, the next meter read, you're out, and you can get out anytime you want. No
I'm sorry,
penalties.
call who?
The supplier. Or the utility, either one.
I tried to call a supplier from someone. I couldn't get through for 3 hours.
Right.
So how do you get through a supplier?
Okay, here's the deal.
So there's no such thing as pick up the phone and say, I'm out, because no matter who you're calling today, you got to answer 50,000 questions.
Here's the difference. There's a lot of third-party suppliers out there. Some of whom are, you know, sending literature to your house or, you know, through the internet. Sometimes you have folks walking around at you know, street fairs passing out. And you know, there's sort of fine print. You sign up for a deal, maybe you save a little money, then the price changes 2 months later. You're paying more. They don't really have much of a back office support group, et cetera. One of the benefits of the government energy aggregation is you go through a bid process, you have a qualification process, so that's one of the things we look at. So, and that's a big part of it. So the qualifications, have you done government aggregation before? What kind of back office support do you have? What's your customer service staffing? How many folks? What are the hours? Are they bilingual? You know, et cetera, et cetera. So the folks that are in the end qualified to bid on this are folks that are big players, big back office support. They're in the program. At the end of the day, there's a dedicated 800 number just for the program. So just for the township's program, they have their own dedicated 800 number, which is staffed. So, I mean, you're absolutely right, because a lot of the third-party suppliers that are just sort of marketing individual customers, no question about it. A lot of them they're working out of their garage or whatever it is, major issues. So that's one of the important parts of this process is vetting and qualifying the suppliers to make sure they've got what it takes.
Okay.
Is there any guarantee that 1 month, like, one bill is not going to be higher than the other? Like, say he opts out, I don't, and we use the same amount of power, that his bill is not going to be cheaper 1 month?
If he opts out,
He opted out. He kept JCP&L, I switched.
I'm going to say no.
So there is no guarantee.
Well, no, I'm going to say no, he wouldn't pay higher. Here's the deal. When the JCP&L price is reset once a year. Every June, they reset the price for the next year. Price is posted. There's a summer price, winter price. They're pretty close together. They're really within about 0.2 of a cent. So we know, as of June 1st, what the price is for the next year. So when we get bids and award a contract, let's say the JCP&L tariff price is 10.4 cents, which is around what it is. We take bids. We're not awarding unless it's below 10.4.
And at no point there could go under what yours is.
No, it can't.
Okay.
It can't. And if it did, folks could still get out. But what I'm saying is, we know what the tariff price is. We would not award.
Oh, I know.
And
at
it's a
that
fi-
point,
and it's
I'm
a
just
fixed
saying,
price
say
con-
3 months down the road.
The only thing was if you have, let's say, a 2-year let's say you award a 2-year contract, and the JCP&L price is going to change 13 months in, right there after the first year. Is there some remote possibility that it drops enough that it's above the tariff price? Maybe. Here's what we do, just so you know when we go through the analysis. I kind of gave a simplified version of how JCP&L prices their power, you know, through the wholesale auction. To get into the weeds more, what they actually do is they do an auction every year for the wholesale supply for 1/3 of what they need, and they sign 3-year contracts every year. So every June, the price is reset based on an average of the last 3 wholesale contracts that they sign. So that in June of 2013, the new price will be an average of the February. They do the auctions in February, so it will be an average of the February 2011, February 2012, February 2013 auction. The 2010 contract drops off the board. So by next week, I will know exactly what the tariff price will be from June of 2013 through May of 2014. I also know what 2/3 of the price is going to be for the following year. So I only have 1/3 floating.
There is an outside chance that they can come in 13 months.
Well, again, what I'll say is we would not recommend that you award a contract if the winning price was, say, 2 or 3% below the current tariff, because maybe that could happen in the second year. So I like to have enough room, let's say more than 5%, so that the tariff's not going to drop by that much, because I already know 2/3 of the price. So that's kind of how we deal with that.
I have one more question for you. I don't know if you'll be able to answer it because it's more of a philosophical question. You know, what role does government have telling the people that we're going to change their delivery company? Yes, we may be saving them money, but, there's something sticking in my side that's saying, that's not really the role of government. I almost feel that it would be a better way that we give them, the residents, the opportunity, but it's more of an opt-in than an opt-out. But but like I said, it's a philosophical question. It's not about saving money. It's just, the question is, what is the role of government,
Right.
and should we be forcing things down people's
Right. It
down
is,
their
it
throat?
is a philosophical question, and, it's a valid question to raise. What I can share for you is kind of how we got to where we are. When the law was originally passed in '99, the original energy restructuring law passed by the legislature, government aggregation was opt-in, okay? And it didn't work, because essentially, in order for a power supplier to bid on a bunch, residential accounts, you need to have sort of a critical mass of customers. And so basically what was found is if folks are individually signing something to get in, it takes, A, so long to do that, you get a critical mass of folks, A, and B, if you do it over a long enough period of time, it's hard to manage the bid because time has gone on, the market changes, et cetera. So it went to opt out. I think people originally recognized it's a philosophical quandary, and opt-in is preferred just philosophically, but from the realities of how these programs work, under an opt-in, it doesn't work. So the legislature decided to change it to opt-out after about 4 or 5 years of nothing happening. And all you can do is try to build in as many protections as you can. You notify folks every way you can. You give them the opportunity to opt out initially. You give them the opportunity to opt out anytime during the process without any penalties, because most third-party suppliers that are running around signing people up, they do have early termination penalties. They do change their price after 3 months. None of that happens here. So, I've heard the question before. It's a valid consideration. All I can say is, it wound up the way it is because it's the only way that will work in the marketplace to get folks savings. And then you do everything you can to, A, let people know what's going on, and B, give them every opportunity to get out if they don't like it.
Bob, do I understand correctly that we can also include governmental accounts and business accounts, but on an opt-in basis?
Correct. You can do that. You don't have to. You can combine, municipal accounts in the bid. I know the municipality here has been a part of another aggregation group. So that, again, that's a decision for you to make. The law allows you to include municipal accounts in the bid on an opt-in basis, your decision, and also businesses in town. Now, it's proven to be, we included originally businesses in the Plumstead bid. It's challenging because that is opt-in. You do have to go around to individual businesses and get them to sign up and, sort of educate them on the program. And what we've, having done this many, many years in the marketplace, over the last 10 years where retail choice has been a reality, majority of commercial customers have either at one time or another or on a continuing basis have already gone to third-party suppliers. The folks that are remaining that haven't done it, the businesses that haven't, tend to be really small mom and pops who, A, don't necessarily spend a lot of money on energy, and B, they are sort of a one-person shop where one person's running the business, doing the bills. Do they have time to really focus on reading an energy contract, et cetera? So what we've kind of found is it's really difficult. The businesses that are left in town that you could include because they haven't done it already are really hard to get them focused, hard to get enough together to get a critical mass. So what I've kind of come to the realization is it can work, but I think it's in a town where if you have some kind of a strong business affinity group, whether it's a chamber of commerce or something like that, which that affinity group has a good relationship with businesses, they meet regularly, and they can sort of talk about it amongst themselves, and with the help of consultant or whomever to help educate them. But that sort of, I think that becomes a good way to maybe get a large group of businesses educated and into it. So you can do it, you don't have to do it.
Jasmine, this is just a follow-up to your question and mine. Why would businesses be opt-in and residents be opt-out? I mean, it seems that we're discounting I want to say the intelligence of residents. Why would businesses have the opportunity to opt in, and it wouldn't go the same for residents?
Well, again, if you've got, I mean, in theory, I think when the law was written many years ago, I think the thought was the businesses could be large businesses, town, et cetera. You only need one or two to get a big enough mass that it's a good load of electric for a bidder to bid on. Residential accounts, you literally need hundreds and thousands to make it something that a bidder's going to spend their time going through a public bid process to bid on. So it's just a matter of how do we get enough accounts together to make it work. And I mean, that's basically how it came out that way, to be honest.
So, yeah, I'm good. To conclude this conversation,
Yeah.
unless you opt out as a citizen, you're in automatically.
Unless,
it
if you
crystal
don't opt
clear
out, you're in
for the
until you
people.
choose to opt out
Right.
at any time along the way.
Thank you.
Correct.
Do you need us to do anything else tonight?
We'll put the resolution appointing Gable Associates as the energy agent for next week.
Do you have pamphlets or anything, handouts? that you
I
can
could
get to
I
us?
could send you whatever you need. I didn't bring them with me, but I'd be happy to share
Just
whatever
information
you
in case
like.
anyone has questions.
Absolutely.
I'm actually curious to see what any members of the public have to say about this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, discussions. We have 3 resolutions added to discussion. Jasmine?
Yes, we have 3 nonprofits who have submitted applications to Morris County Community Development for projects that are located in Parsippany. And one of the requirements for the application is that these projects be discussed at a public meeting in Parsippany. The 3 projects include Special Homes of New Jersey. They are in the group home project that we funded through HMFA for a 4-bedroom group home, and they're interested in converting the garage space into a 1-bedroom accessible, handicapped accessible apartment for a 5th unit. And they've submitted an application to Morris County Community Development Home Program for $60,000 to convert that garage into
At
an
the same
apartment.
address?
Yes. The second project is a project with Newbridge and the Rose House. We have allocated $505,000 from the Township's Affordable Housing Trust Fund for 6 1-bedroom apartments. And they are applying to the county home program for $300,000 in matching funds for that same project. The third project is by Family Promise of New Jersey, which was formerly the Interfaith Council for Homeless Families. They are resubmitting an application that they submitted last year for the renovation and expansion of a family room at their shelter.
My question is, I think the 505,000, but I could be mistaken, was one that they were going to one location and then that location didn't work out and they're
That-
going someplace else.
That's
So
correct.
the money stays the same no matter what,
Yes.
same amount?
It's the same number of units.
Okay.
And that apartment, that's another resolution on for next week, is to change the location of
Yeah, I saw that.
that
Okay.
project. But that also includes a 4-bedroom group
So
home
we
in
could get
addition.
away with giving them less money.
Okay, any discussion or anything?
Yeah,
Okay, I'm in favor.
I'm good.
Right. I just have a question about the soccer one. Should I wait till after the public?
Yep. Okay, applications, 2013 license renewals, Part 4. New limousine license, Jake's Limo Service, 799 Route 46, Parsippany, New Jersey, 07054 for 7 vehicles. At this time, I'll entertain a motion, open this up to a public hearing.
Wait, before you do that, we
Okay.
had one more item for Yancy,
All right, you want to, yep.
a resolution.
I make a motion, oh, you do,
I have to read the entire
Okay,
thing
okay.
because we have nothing available to the public.
okay.
This is a resolution opposing Senate Bill 2511, Amendments to Open Public Meetings Act. Whereas legislation has been introduced to reform and modernize the Open Public Meetings Act, S 2511, and whereas the governing body of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills agrees with and supports the statement that the right of the public to be present at all meetings of public bodies and to witness in full detail all phases of deliberation, policy formulation, and decision-making of public policies is vital to the enhancement and proper functioning of the democratic process. And whereas the changes, however, proposed in S 2511 will not only be a cost driver for local and state government, but make government less effective. Whereas S 2511 includes a number of proposed requirements which involve costly, unfunded mandates, impractical requirements, and impediments to the democratic process. And whereas S 2511 creates a new definition of subcommittees that expands subcommittees to be overly inclusive. And whereas subcommittees would be required to provide public notice of subcommittee meetings if the governing body determines them to be open, and whereas the subcommittees would be required to submit at least one report to the governing body detailing the number of meetings, names of members of the committees, and a concise statement of the matters discussed. The governing body would be required to establish a schedule of when the subcommittee reports shall be filed. And whereas subcommittees do not commit the governing body to action or expend public funds, and whereas the requirements for subcommittee meetings would, among other things, necessitate additional administrative support for all subcommittees as well as increased legal advertising cost, and whereas the new requirement that agendas provide a description of all agenda items, including the names of parties to and approximate dollar amounts of any contracts to be acted upon, will delay the award of contracts and could lead to the loss of grant monies. And whereas the new requirement that the governing body may act upon an item brought up by a citizen at a public meeting if it was not published as an agenda item, only if, one, there is a vote of 2/3 of the members present to proceed. Two, the municipality demonstrates that it is in the public's best interest and includes the reasons why it is in the public best interest in the minutes, is impractical, ineffective, and unnecessarily inhibits the operations of municipal government, and runs contrary to the time-honored tradition of holding a public meeting for the very purpose of soliciting such input and acting upon it. And whereas the new requirement that electronic communications such as emails and text messages concerning public business among an effective majority of the members that occurred prior to the meeting become part of the minutes and renders the recordings a permanent municipal record is unworkable and unmanageable, as the technology does not always exist to make hard copies or digital copies of text messages, and the records custodian does not always have access to them, and which is an unprecedented expansion of the meeting concept. And whereas the new requirement that comprehensive minutes must include each member's stated reasons for their actions or vote, the identity of each member of the public who spoke, and summary of what was said be made available to the public as soon as possible, but no later than 60 days after the meeting, will not only be costly, but the historical value of minutes will be lost in order to meet an arbitrary deadline. And whereas the new requirement that the public be allowed to speak for a minimum of 3 minutes at the start of a public meeting without the ability of the public body to limit the length of the public comment could disrupt public meetings, lead to filibustering, and prevent the governing body from conducting business. And whereas the provisions of S 2511 place financial, time, manpower, and other burdens on municipalities at a time when municipalities are forced to lay off municipal employees, impose furloughs, and reduce departmental budgets so that the municipalities can meet the strict cap requirements with decreased revenues and increasing operating expenses. And whereas the totality of the new requirements of S 2511 will be a significant cost driver for local and state government with no known appropriation contemplated or any alternate means to offset these costs, such as a reasonable increase in fees. And whereas the provisions of S 2511 continue to exempt the legislature from the requirements placed on municipalities, and whereas while we appreciate Senator Weinberg's efforts to address our concerns, we must continue to oppose the amendments to the Open Public Meetings Act, as the changes proposed in S 2511 will not only be a cost driver for local and state government, but make government less effective. Now therefore be it resolved by the governing body of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, for reasons stated above, does hereby oppose S 2511 as currently drafted, and strongly urges the State Senate and Assembly to oppose these bills. And be it further resolved that the governing body of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills does hereby strongly urge the legislature, in the interest of transparency and openness, to remove the various exceptions in the Open Public Meetings Law that apply to the legislature. The rules that the legislation makes applicable to other government bodies should apply equally to all government levels and officials. And be it further resolved that a copy of this duly adopted resolution be forwarded to Senate President Stephen Sweeney, Senator Loretta Weinberg, Assembly Speaker Sheila Oliver, Assemblyman Gordon Johnson, the legislatures of the municipality of Parsippany-Troy Hills, state legislative districts, Governor Chris Christie, and the New Jersey State League of Municipalities, and the Municipal Clerks Association of New Jersey.
Second.
Motion by Mr. DiPiero, second by Mr. Nelson. All in favor of proposing S 2511? Anyone opposed? Any discussion?
I don't know if Yancy wants to say anything on this, but my understanding when I read the draft over our township email, it's absolutely ludicrous. They're passing a law that exempts them from the same law, but it imposes it all on us in the guise of openness, and yet we have to pay the costs associated with this. Subcommittees. If you have a committee, let's say the Municipal Alliance Committee, and they decide to have a subcommittee look into some proposed new program or some proposed new fundraiser, that subcommittee now has to advertise its meetings and provide the minutes. I mean, this is absolutely unworkable, totally unworkable.
It's also a financial burden on every subcommittee we have. Okay.
That's probably why they're pushing it.
Okay, you'll draft your resolution. Okay, at this time, I'll entertain a motion to open this up to the public.
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Creefy, before we go forward, Mr.
sorry.
Creefy, just one that's up.
Yes, I'd like to, if I'd like to make a request, if we can have our environmental committee do a study on the Waterview project. I know that's moving along with the planning board. At some point, it may get to us, and I'd like to have some input from that committee in reference to that project, if that's possible.
I will,
I wish-
The process for that is that environmental committees review plans. If the ordinance, if an ordinance is enacted and plans are submitted to the planning board, and as part of that review process, the environmental committee would review plans, because that's what they do. They're not planners, they don't review concepts, they would review the plans once they're submitted. So there is a point in the process in which the environmental committee would become involved in a formal, in a formal way. They're advisory committees, so I don't mean to say formal in terms of having binding input. But their input in Parsippany, as in all municipalities, would be to review plans that are that would be submitted to the planning board.
Okay, so when those plans are submitted.
Yeah, and they would in the ordinary course, those plans would be circulated to the environmental committee, as well as other department in the township for review and comments, so that the planning board has the benefit of those comments before it commences proceeding on site plan approval.
Councilman Karifi, as you know, I'm the liaison to that committee. There was some discussion how that was handled. It wasn't handled properly.
Okay.
There's actually an email on my email that we were looking for how it was done. It wasn't done through the proper channels. It was done by a phone call.
Oh, I
So
didn't know.
well, I know.
Oh, okay.
I wish you would have asked me. I am the the liaison.
No, I didn't know.
but
I didn't-
Yeah,
I had no
yeah.
idea.
It wasn't done through the proper channels, but I am looking into it, and I at the next meeting I will make a request. So by the time it gets to us, we should have something. But yes, you are correct.
and usually, like the counselor said, they submit this type of information to not just the environmental committee, but the historical advisory committee as well. And either they weigh in or they don't weigh in, so. But
Actually, if you read the report, Mayor, and I'm sure you did, there is a letter in the back by Ed Schneikes from the Historic, because there was a I'm also throw it out there. There was a question about a cemetery by the Doramus family being on that property.
Yep.
And I made sure
It's
that
not on
that's
the
not
property.
even,
Yeah.
it's
not on the
not even being touched. It's nowhere near where the Whole Food is being built.
It's not on that property.
Right,
Yeah.
right. No, I just wanted to let everybody know.
Plus the environmental impact, you know what? Probably best to not respond to it until, because it's still in the planning process to go to the council anyway.
Okay, at this time, I'll entertain a motion open to the public.
Make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Karifi,
Second?
second by Mr. Farrar. Roll call.
Mr. Karifi?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Stanton?
Yes. You'll be given 5 minutes to speak on any subject. Please, if you're going to come up and speak, please come up and sit in the first few rows. Thank you.
Is it on? Somebody help Mr. Ray Schapp.
There it goes.
There we go.
Little button was on. Joe Raish, 8 Wolf Place, Parsippany. Let me get your definition of what a subcommittee is. Isn't that what the environmental committee, for one, would be? The municipal alliance committee, that's a subcommittee. The historical committee, that's a subcommittee.
No.
Those are
Let
committees.
him finish, please,
Let
give us
him
5
finish.
minutes before we ask questions. Thank you.
I just want to get the concept right, because the transparency is not there for those committees to, with the public being notified to their committees. The last time I came over, at a public hearing about the environmental committee. I spent my 5 minutes, and then I was told by Councilman Ferrara that when the meeting was in February, and whether or not that they'd be dealing with the issue that I was talking about. And that be as it may, I requested from the mayor to notify the town citizens if the Army Corps of Engineers were involved with the water retention wall over in Lake Hiawatha that breached during Hurricane Irene, which is in 2011. There was a bill that's sitting in the state assembly and the state senate in regards to the breaching of that wall and what occurred during Hurricane Irene since 2011 January. And this issue has not been met, and I was wondering what input the Army Corps of Engineers, in addition to the Department of Environmental Protection in the state of New Jersey, offered to in regard to the wall issue.
Well, Joe, as you know, I know you met with Justin Leza, am I correct?
I spoke to him, yes.
All right. In regards to the wall, I'm going to get that information about the Army Corps engineer, but I know we spoke to you, and I know this concept has been passed by you on several occasions. I know it was passed on to you when you came to the environmental committee meeting,
Right.
and you continue to ask the same question in regards to the wall, and I keep answering the same way. So I'm going to answer to you in the way Justin Leza, I guess, answered it. During Hurricane Irene, the wall was immediately evaluated to ensure its safety. The report cited there are no immediate concerns. However, there are some erosion issues that needed to be addressed. Now, I know we discussed certain things on this. These issues are not considered to be an emergency. This is what he said to you, he told me, and writing from Paula. The feasibility study, which you and I discussed for the probably third, fourth time now, will be conducted regarding to the wall's height compared to its flood elevation of 100-year flood elevation.
Right.
I know Councilman DePiero discussed with you as well in regards to the wall and the costs and all that kind of stuff that are associated with raising the wall, which is what you really want to see happen. The preliminary data indicates that the wall is not at the same level, and, we discussed this. Elevation, consistency, and topo survey will be conducted to determine those areas of inconsistency. Excuse me. These are rented lips, I apologize. But anyway, the company, and I said this to you before, the company that's going to conduct the feasibility study is O'Brien and Gear. They also conduct these studies for the Jersey City Reservoir. These studies are being done. And what we will do is once we get the data back from the study, we can further advance. But I've said this to you on several occasions in regards to the wall, and I don't know how to answer it. I'm going to answer it the same way all the time.
Well, the wall didn't do the job of protecting the citizens of Lake Hiawatha and Parsippany-Troy Hills in that emergency.
Right. The wall wasn't breached, Joe.
Well, breaching is, now I'm
Well,
going to use the
that's
opposite
mean it
term.
doesn't
of
work.
breach.
It wasn't
Breached means that it breaking. It also means overflowing. Yes, it did not break.
30 seconds, Mr. Rich.
Okay, but it did go over the top, and it caused many floodings within the township and a lot of hardship. People aren't even back from it.
And that's absolutely correct.
This study is going to work on that.
Right, but
Whose auspices are these engineers?
Right, but let me reiterate. You were at the environmental committee meeting when they discussed
Once, yeah.
the wall, and I'll say it again: a 100-year flood elevation, and this was a 500-year.
It wasn't sufficient, obviously.
All right, it was a 500-year flood. It wasn't a wall that was capable to handle a 100-year flood elevation. That being said, there was also a study done by the environmental committee, and you saw the determination of that. I think that was even put online. But that being said, once the study, now I don't know if it's done or not, and I'll find out. O'Brien and Gear is complete. We'll see what the next phase is going to be.
Fine, thank
you,
you.
Joe.
Next.
Mr. Mayor, could you just address the committees and subcommittees answer?
Well, Mr. DiPiero, you were...
Or Mr. DiPiero?
It's a legal problem.
The Municipal Alliance Committee, the Environmental Committee, the Historical Committee, these are committees. If they have some special thing to do that does not require the entire committee, and they form a subcommittee to do some special one portion of a project for them, that would be a subcommittee. It's some of the members of a committee that are doing one thing, and when they're done, that subcommittee is dissolved. This law is trying to make even those subcommittees advertise and be responsible for public input.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Bob Venezia. I live at 102 Brooklawn Drive. I'm trying to get a better handle on the, trying to better understand the new occupancy ordinance, the 2013:02. And while I was reading it, I wrote down some questions that I have that I'd like to read off and get answered tonight. I have a copy of them so that you don't have to and answer them. The first question: when a waiver expires after 1 year, what section of the ordinance prohibits the same lessee from reapplying and thereby extending the same waiver for another year and perhaps continuing this process indefinitely? Number two, it's kind of like a variation if you have multiple lessees and they do a tag team job on you. In the case where more than one person's name appears on the lease, let's suppose that lessee A applies for and is granted a waiver. When that waiver expires, what section of the ordinance prohibits a different lessee from applying for the same waiver, thus extending the original waiver by another year? Third question: the waiver application must be signed by the applicant's landlord. Is the person or corporation that owns the apartment considered the landlord, or can a building superintendent or apartment manager sign off? Number four, what section of the ordinance prohibits a lessee who has already been cited by the Division of Housing for an occupancy violation from delaying prosecution or circumventing it entirely by applying for a waiver? And lastly, how many waivers do you expect to be issued in an average year? How do you propose to monitor the waiver process to make sure that the number of waivers that you're granting does not far exceed the number anticipated? And what are you going to do if you get more than you expect? Thank you.
Mr. Council President, we can address those questions as part of the public hearing at the next meeting.
Okay. It's going to be next week that we answer the questions, not tonight, because it's not before. Thank you.
Yeah, so you can photocopy that.
Yeah, Mr. Messi, just so you know that next week is actually the public hearing on this ordinance. So thank you for the questions in advance. What we'll do is, some of them were legal, some of them were administrative. We'll have answers prepared to your questions and address those at the public hearing on this ordinance next week.
And can we get a copy?
Yes, we have.
Yeah, we have a
Okay.
copy of the
Thank you.
questions.
I understand, but it makes it easier if I knew the answers, then I
I know.
better for next week. You're a little on the spot.
Oh, the public hearing is next week, so.
All right, I'm Nicholas Homiak from 26 Oneida. I'm back to remind everybody that our litter ordinance is still being violated. There's absolutely no enforcement. There's no sense of duties and responsibilities that I can see in the workforce in the municipality. This is Groundhog's Day on North Beverwick. You've seen these pictures before. I have this. I typed it up for Councilman Ferrara, Mayor, but I followed the crew around on Monday. 3 days a week, they empty these municipal cans. I counted 34 cans from Longview Avenue at Shingus down to the, I believe it's the Chamber of Commerce down by Vito's Men's Saloon. 34. They emptied the 34 cans. Here's a picture of the truck. They still got about 4 bags to go. And they didn't do any of the recycle containers. This is what almost every recycle container looks like. So I guess they do that on another schedule. But here, this is an example. We have the work crew out there. They're emptying the cans as fast as possible, as if they're doing forced labor or they're, slaves or something. Absolutely no, this could have all been handled manually by a broom, a little bit of manpower. Here, right, they empty the bag and they're right on the sidewalk and they leave. I'd like to submit this to, it's more of the same
Yeah, we got the stormwater, right?
that I submitted already. Here, where's the paper? I have,
We have an order.
I looked at our litter ordinances. They're very weak and vague. And I got on the internet, I hit household waste, I come up, bingo, Hamilton, New Jersey. They got the best. I think we should imitate them and change our ordinances. They include everything. And in their town, the police department is not the only officials who can handle these situations. They have an environmental enforcement officer. They're very descriptive in their descriptions of not only sidewalks, but alleyways, driveways, any accessible space between buildings. They have excellent litter ordinance. I would also submit this, that our town should definitely not only strengthen the ordinances, but start some type of enforcement, beginning with an education program. There's no excuse for what's going on up there. It's just, like I said, it's a total neglect of duty and responsibilities. All this talk in the country today about citizenship, it's a joke. Who is the citizen of this country, really? By behavior of the average person. It's really, we could all use a lesson in citizenship. But this is an example. And then I'm still disturbed about the $85,000 a year that Parsippany gets for the clean communities. And this energy is also centered on North Beverwick Road. These workers, minimum wage, are taking trash, household trash, business trash, dumped, and you're paying a minimum wage. It shouldn't be. They could be someplace else making the community cleaner, and they're not. They're all centered in the same area that's already been done 3 days a week by the municipality. And again, it's trash removal, it's not litter abatement.
30 seconds, sir.
All right, you have a form here that you get the money. What amazes me about the form is they only ask for number of cleanups, number of hours, number of participants. They don't ask you where it's coming from. So it seems if you play the game, you can get 85 grand, you know, no problem at all. You got to do is fill out the paper. But I think it's wrong to center that energy up there on North Beverwick. I encourage the town council, like I said, to start a program, change the ordinances, and start the education and enforcement. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I'll go first. As you know, me and you have been having dialogues, correct? I also told you I'm working in conjunction with the mayor's office. Did I not?
Yes, sir, but...
Okay. I understand if you want to answer, but it's okay. They can't have it on record because you're not by the microphone. We are working on a plan. I told you it was something that I was taking on. I met at least 3 times with the mayor, twice with the business administrator. I met with Rena Plax. I think everybody knows who Rena Plax is. We are working on it. I also told you it wasn't going to be done overnight. I promise you it's something that I'm not going to let go. So I just want you to know I am working on it. I haven't shared anything with the rest of the council because the plan has not been finalized. Of course, they have their own opinion. They're free to tell you, but I'm telling you for myself, through the mayor's office, we are working on it. And I told you it was going to take you a little while. It was going to take me a little while. So thank you very much, but I am working on it at this point.
We just if I may, Councilman Ferrer has been in contact with me on this issue, and you and I have talked. It's definitely being worked on. We're going to come up with a plan of, you know, Clean North Beverwick Road type of a, you know, logo. And I'm going to be meeting with the sanitation director in regards to the pickups, because like you, it's always on Sunday where it's the worst because we don't pick up on Sundays. So, you know, it's going to come down to, honestly, enforcement. And that's the only way I believe it can be done. But there will be warnings first, and then enforcement comes later. But we are definitely working on it. And because I live in that section of town as well. And, you know, you know, that's one of my biggest frustrations. And so now we were going to tackle the fact that how can we make people responsible? And that's what it really comes down to. And you're right, education and responsibility.
It's good to hear, but when you talk to the town workers, what I get is you're wasting your time. It's never going to happen. That's what.
Well, you tell me what town. You tell me what town. You tell me the truck number and the town worker that said that, and I'll handle it. Because any town worker that doesn't take pride in Parsippany, I have an issue with that.
You see that thing right there, like I said,
Okay.
it's a work morale factor.
Right.
And supervisors should get after it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right, so it's good to hear, and I'm...
Thank you, Mrs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You'll hear from me soon.
Hello, Council. I'm Rob Parisi from 36 Florham Road. I'm just wondering when the rest of the roads in the area are going to be paved. We have about several maybe about 8 roads in the area between Brooklawn School and Parsippany Grammar School that aren't paved yet. And I feel that I have to pump the water out of my driveway because I have 3 of those roads leading into it. And the other issue is all the children that fall in the spider cracks and all the other stuff. I waited 2 years. I saw them completing the roads from Farmingdale over to Allentown or Atlantic, which is the last road, really. I just wanted to know if it's still in the budget and when they will be finished.
You can actually contact my office tomorrow. I will get the schedule on that on those roads. I'll speak with the township engineer to see when those roads are going to be addressed and completed. We have a we have a plan on the infrastructure. So if you call me tomorrow or come by, whatever, if you have the time,
Sure.
we'll see when it's going to be addressed. And we'll actually go take a look to see if it's, how bad it truly is, that maybe we can divert from what we're doing to take care of those types of.
Okay. It's just that I've seen other roads being resurfaced within probably a same 7 or 10 year period when these roads haven't even been touched and are still down to those kind of 1-lane roads. And also for the factor of the kids. Every year, yes, I actually do pick up a few kids off the road with bloody knees, hands, and all of that. So I was just wondering, since they stopped, is it going to start again? And I waited 2 years to put a driveway in, which I literally had to put an 8-inch speed bump to keep the water out.
And this is one of the reasons why when we go for the infrastructure, as you know, the bond rates are so low right now, we're trying to take advantage of, in the infrastructure in town as well. So, yeah, you call me tomorrow, and,
Stop by.
or stop by, it's better.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council.
Good evening. How is everybody tonight?
Good.
Water Steve Bach, 20 Woodland Way. Sorry. Okay. Water view. It was brought up. I'm wondering if the Environmental Commission would be looking at this before the Planning Board makes a decision. I think there were 2 statements both ways before they make a decision, and when it reaches the council before you make a decision. So I'm wondering which way it would go.
Well, there's no decision for the planning board to make at the moment. Right now, the way the process works is there is a plan in concept that is there for the planning board. At such time as the planning board deems appropriate, the planning board can simply say, okay, we've seen enough for now, send it to the council and prepare an ordinance.
They don't formally make an approval?
No, there's no
of the zoning change?
Correct. There is no approval by the planning board to be made at this stage of the process. The applicant is petitioning for a zone change, and that, under the law, there's flexibility for that to be initiated either by way of concept plan before the planning board, which I think is the direction that they received, or simply by introduction of an ordinance. Now, what happens is the real process begins once it comes to the council. There's an ordinance that's prepared. The council can either decide to introduce or not introduce the ordinance. If the council decides not to introduce the ordinance, that's it. The process is over. If the council decides to introduce the ordinance, some councilmen may be in favor of the project, some councilmen may not be in favor of the project. Some councilmen may just decide we want the process to go forward at that point. They would introduce the ordinance. At that point, the ordinance is then referred to the planning board. And the planning board, within 35 days, I think it is, of the ordinance being referred to them, must issue a recommendation
And that's the
to the council.
recommendation to change the zoning?
That would be a
or not?
recommendation. Well, the recommendation would be, we like the ordinance, or we don't like the ordinance, or we like the ordinance with these modifications. The planning board has flexibility to say, or the planning board could say nothing at all.
But I guess from a technical aspect, they're not recommending it, or not recommending it, they're just
There is-
saying, we'd like the council to look at
Yeah,
this?
there is no ordinance prepared at the moment. So there is no formal process. There's no vote. There's nothing before the planning board right now to vote upon. There's no ordinance. Planning boards.
There's a draft ordinance provided by the applicant. I don't know if that's one and the same of what you're referring
Well,
to.
in order for, it's sort of like, it's legislation, so it's.
That's why I asked the question.
Yeah, so what happens is, yeah, sure, the ordinance, the applicant's making a pitch on a project. I'm sure they have a model ordinance, they have ideas, issues are identified, they're addressed, then an ordinance would be prepared. And again, the council would either introduce it or not. Assuming that it's introduced, it goes to the planning board for recommendation. Planning board can recommend that the council adopt the ordinance. Planning board can take no action. Planning board can recommend that the ordinance be adopted with modifications, or the planning board can recommend against the ordinance. At that point, the ordinance comes back to the council for second reading and public hearing. At that particular point, the public, at the public hearing, weighs in on the ordinance. If the council approves the ordinance is then passed. The next stage of the process would then be that the applicant would have to submit a site plan approval, a site plan application. That application would go to the planning board for consideration, an actual site plan in conformance with the ordinance. It may have some variances, it may not have some variances. At that particular point in time, the Environmental Commission, along with other municipal agencies, would be provided with copies of those plans, and they would review those plans, and if they desire to, they would weigh in typically with comment letters to the planning board. And, the board and the applicant should consider those comments in the board's deliberation and consideration of the site plan application. So that's the way, the process works.
All right, so what is the best time for the Environmental Commission to review the application? And let me add one more thing. Since it's an application to change from an office development to a partial residential development, we'll also have the Board of Education review.
No, there's no place for the Board of Education. I mean, the place for the Board of Education to review is as part of the public hearing process. The Board of Education has no jurisdiction over land use.
No, that I
matters.
understand, but to review
30 seconds, sir.
to review what's been put forth by the applicant and to confirm, deny, maybe suggest a modification. In other words, the applicant is suggesting a number of condominium units would provide X number of children into the local school system.
Yeah, the Board of
They're saying
Education,
they're saying 14, and who knows what the basis of that is. Let's say it's approved, and 50 kids come out of there. Well, that's a lot different than 14. That may involve not just simply loading classrooms to the maximum count of 20 or 21 kids per classroom, but hiring a number of teachers.
Yeah, in terms of the number of school children, the school boards typically do not weigh in on that. Frankly, they have no authority to weigh in on. They have no credibility to weigh in on
No,
that.
I understand.
It's a planning
just as
issue.
a guide for the planning board
There-
and council.
If the school board wants to weigh in, there's nothing to prevent them from doing so at a public meeting. In terms of the number of school children the projects would generate, what planners look to in the state of New Jersey is the Rutgers study. That is the study that is universally adopted by the state and one that is universally adopted pretty much by planning boards throughout the state and by the planning community.
Well, I have a little unique knowledge in that aspect, not as a planner or demographer, but I was on the Board of Education and on the Building and Grounds Committee when we reviewed demographers' reports, when we contemplated the last referendum that added
Okay,
additions
Mr.
to
Bach, just
schools.
finish your sentence.
Yes,
right
I
there.
will.
Thank you.
And the demographer, let's just say their numbers were not as, I don't know, they did not project the increase that we're seeing now. A number of schools where we added additions are now full in each classroom, where we contemplated the number coming from 25 kids per classroom to about 17 to 20.
I don't know what demographers report you're referring to. I can tell you that the Rutgers study, which has been universally accepted in New Jersey, is the one that's sort of the gospel. That study, I believe, has actually been revised once or twice because it's overestimated in the past the number of school children generated by projects. but it is not a legal basis to deny a project on the basis of school children that would be generated. Although it's an issue that usually does come up, it's one that people are usually curious about. And again, there's really not much of a mystery there because the Rutgers study gives the planning board that information.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Lee Kimo, 342 Lakeshore Drive, Lake Hiawatha. I just want to reiterate something you were discussing earlier in reference to a fence on Route 46. Yeah, in 40 years that I lived in this town, I've seen an awful lot of people maimed and injured on Route 46. The fence was a godsend when it was put up. And I say this truthfully because it stopped a lot of people from parking on the side of the road, crossing over 4 lanes of traffic, an island, to go to Dunkin' Donuts to get coffee in the morning. And I went out there a couple of times and cleaned up a lot of blood spots out there. And it's not the first time. I've been doing it for over 40 years. Cleaning up bodies. That's what I volunteered to do in this town. If I had my way about it, that fence would have stretched from the Montville line all the way to the Mountain Lakes line. And if the state wanted to put that fence in and made it mean something, they would have taken that island out all the way down the whole highway, because it's a state road. Put a single fence up. Now nobody can cross it. You got to use the intersections, what the intersections are designed for, not to cut across the islands. I was in a class for this Citizens Committee. We were in a class. We actually witnessed the police being sent to another fatality on Route 46. Right out of the classroom. Because somebody in dark clothes decided they wanted to cross the highway in the middle of the night. Boom. Became another statistics. Another dead person in Parsippany. If people are going to walk around in the night in dark clothes, they deserve to get hit. Because you're inviting cars with their headlights off, passing the other vehicles, and you're getting caught in the middle. You got no place to go. You are another fatality in this town. So by eliminating the possibility of becoming a statistic in this town, and not being in a hurry, I'd either lower the speed limit on Route 46, I'd put that fence up from one end of town to the other end of town, and if they wanted to take the island out, put another lane of traffic in. Thank you very much for your time.
Capitaccio, 182 Hawkins Avenue. I also agree that the fence should not be removed, John. That's a good thought on your part with the liability and stuff. I, too, have witnessed accidents over that way, and the trucks that used to come and run back and forth. You know, the thing is that you can't satisfy everybody. Some people, I mean, I remember when that conversation was had and they did that, there was more than one accident. There were a few accidents at that scene. There were a lot of people that were irate and that were getting in touch with Luther and stuff. So I do remember a lot about it, and it is worthwhile. I mean, the sad part is that people don't have the intelligence to go to the crosswalks, that they have to cross in the middle. We just got to start thinking better also for ourselves. As far as the energy supplier, that's just going to be one supplier being offered to the township? Okay. I myself get notices every few days in the mail. You know, I've changed mine and I've saved considerably. However, I don't think the township really does have the right to go in and say, we're going to do it and drag the community in with you. Maybe if the township wanted to do it for all the township offices and buildings and stuff, that'd be a different story. But, you know, to force the taxpayers, I don't think they'd like that. One thing I'd like to bring to the attention of Mr. DePiero, Mr. Barbaria, and my favorite person over there, Jasmine. In 2004, I came to this council with flooding problems on Hawkins and Ball Avenue. I worked on that until finally in 2008, Hawkins Avenue was done in Condit. I have been here every year since, asking what's happening to Ball Avenue and Summit. This year, or at this moment, I would like to know, Brian, if you would put this back on the agenda and find out. This is 9 years I've been working on this project. 9 years. These roads have never been replaced, and they were promised. And Mike Strechay has all documentation in there that these roads need to be replaced. Okay, so I would like to know if you can get that back on the agenda. And one other thing, I'd just like to know where to go with this. I came home one night to the last football game of the season at Parsippany High, and coming down Ball Avenue was complete shock. I never knew what my neighbors were going through over there. They were all parking all over there now too. Very small street, they're all parking over there. The neighbors would like to see some no parking signs up there during the game periods also. And also one other thing is that when I went up there to check out, there was nobody manning the gate when I entered. And not only that I entered off of Ball Avenue, you know that pathway?
Yep.
Okay. Do you know there were 5 cars on that pathway parked? How we get things ruined in this town. And some of these are adults. Okay,
Yep.
so
I'll look into that. And that's where the no
that's
parking.
right in the back of
I know
neighbor's
exactly
property,
where
yeah.
it is, exactly.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I'll handle that, Pat. Okay.
Hi, my name is Mike Lespeau. I live at 80 Brooklyn Drive. I don't know if some of you recall last year towards the fall when the Field of Dreams issue was happening, and I brought up the point about the 80%, 20% rule. 80% of the members of an or of a team are supposed to be, or were supposed to be, a member or a resident of Parsippany in order to avoid paying the non-resident fee. And then members from the organizations came up and said they decided that was for the benefit of their own, of the club, so to speak. I would like to argue basically that I think because of that rule and ordinance, our fields are being overused. There's actually a false shortage of fields as a result of recruiting because of that ordinance change that they're allowed to pass through. And another thing that came up that I found out about at the last meeting that kind of concerns me is a new ordinance you have to lease to the soccer club for $1, apparently a year, your property, and they say that on your own ordinance you're going to be proposing, it says that the Parsippany Soccer Club is a nonprofit corporation of the state of New Jersey, provides recreational facilities and opportunities to the residents of the township of Parsippany-Troy Hills. Now, after you got the team won the national championship, which was a wonderful thing to happen. Kudos to them, they played great. But that made me kind of spurted in my head again, and I went home and I started Googling, looked it up where these people live. So the ordinance was 80% residents, 20% could be non-residents. You still don't pay the fee. That team was 21% residents. Only 4 of those people actually live in Parsippany. I mean, if you want to go down the towns, you've got Morristown, Pompton Lakes, Paramus, Montville, Parsippany, West Orange, Elmwood Park, Montclair, Mendham, Glen Ridge, Sparta, Ridgefield Park, Leona, Livingston, Montville, Parsippany, Basking Ridge, and then the last 2 are Parsippany. The soccer club themselves, on their website, they have the intramural league and then what they call an academy level playing. And I think you guys need to do something to, if you're going to let them use the fields like this, make the academy an academy. Let them pay like everybody else would. The money's the city's losing town. They're going to argue that they pay $100 per player for the year. They use these fields 10 months out of the year. And if you look on your own ordinance, if it's a non-resident team playing on a turf field with lights, it's supposed to be $80 an hour. So our tax dollars are getting used to pay basically for a soccer academy, in their own words. And not only that, I remember Mr. DiPiero expressing a concern to Mr. Ferguson saying, you know, one of the things was that we didn't want our own kids to not be able to make the team. I would also like to argue that not only is that happening, but our tax dollars are actually paying to make better soccer players that our own high schools have to then go and compete against. And I think you guys really need to do something about it. And I know this whole Field of Dreams issue is going to come up again, and we're going to say, we don't have enough turf as it is. We do have enough turf. We have enough fields. It's just that the soccer club and the other people change the ordinance to benefit them for what they want to do. And I think it's being abused. I mean, what they do, they create a travel team, as many as they can, and then they create a higher level team above that, the academy level, get enough kids from out of town, then even go above that, and they want to be, you know, a national powerhouse, and they are, but I think they should not be getting a free boat to do it. And if you check into their tax returns, it's public information. They have hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash right now, and you guys are prepared, in addition to letting them use the fields for free, to give them property for $1 a year to supposedly benefit the residents. They do with the kids, let that be the club, let the academy be the academy, but please do something about it. Thank you.
Any paperwork there for us? Get us copies?
Mr. Council President, I remember when this came up last year. I was sitting in the audience, and I don't want to put Mr. DiPiero on the spot, but I remember you had some interesting remarks about it. If you could just give me a primer on the history of it. I remember you called Mr. Crawford up.
Okay. Well, you have the intramural teams and you have the travel teams. There's no issue with the intramural teams. Those are the young kids. They're learning the game of soccer. The travel teams are the ones that go out and compete with other schools. And this, as I understand it, the soccer league actually has professional coaches for some of these teams. And these professional coaches, they hang their hat on their win-loss records. So they want the best kids they can obtain to be on their teams. And if they know some kids in some other town are the really good ones, they'll get them in to play on the Parsippany teams. Now, that's okay as long as we're not bumping all of our Parsippany kids. My statement was, and you recalled it correctly, was our fields are for our kids primarily, okay? I don't want us training other towns' kids who are going to compete with our high schools in soccer later on. I want our own kids to learn how to play the game and to use our fields. And so we had a ratio that was established that would require if more than was it 80-20, 80% had to be Parsippany kids, and we implemented that. And a few years later, the soccer organization went to the Recreation Advisory Committee and convinced them that that was too extreme, that it should be, what, 50-50, I think it was?
No, I think would change 80, still 80-20, but not per team. It was 80-20 per league.
I haven't been that close to it
changed
since.
Per organization.
They changed it to 80% of the organization, so they get
Instead of
all
The
the kids to
organization,
do
not
that.
of each individual team. Okay.
So we're
Right.
top heavy with young children from Parsippany and not enough
Exactly.
and not enough older.
Right,
Yeah.
and they'll say, well, we don't have enough kids to make some of these teams. Well, maybe not all of them are like semi-pro players. And the other thing is, as far as making the team, which is interesting, because if you look on their website for their academy level, there's a committee. It's not like you just try out. You have to submit your name, you know, to the committee, and then the committee will schedule a tryout for you to see if you're basically worthy to play on one of the elite teams or not. So it's like a whole
The
process.
thing that got me involved in this was there were some of the parents of Parsippany kids that were complaining they couldn't get their children into a travel team in Parsippany. They had to go join a Mountain Lakes soccer team. Yeah, because they couldn't, their kid wasn't good enough to make a travel team in Parsippany. And that's what got me started in this,
Well,
this
I mean,
whole issue
would you-
before.
Is it something that the council does or would do to, we would have to make an
I
ordinance?
think what we should do is, that list of those winners, did you turn that in? Okay. That should go back to the Recreation Advisory Committee, because they're the ones that recommended that we soften the blow and make it for the whole.
But they're the ones who wrote, that's the soccer club. They're on that committee.
I know that. But they're not all, but all of them are not soccer club members.
Every organization in town is on that committee.
Yeah, that committee has a broad section of the township.
My
And-
neighbor actually plays on a rugby team, and he actually called the town to see, to look to see if they could get, rent the turf field, pay to use it. He's a Parsippany resident, pay to use the field. They were told that at the beginning of the year, from 5 o'clock to 9:30 p.m., Monday through Friday, basically, it's blocked out for the soccer club until October. And they block it out because they're going to know they know they're going to need it, and then they wait for them to give them their schedule. So they own those fields.
Can you do me a favor in your spare time? Get me the rosters with the addresses for the, well, not their actual home addresses, just towns.
See,
Other teams, if it's possible.
I don't know if I can. I only was able to find that because it's the public, but you could probably get it from.
Here's what we'll do. I mean, you can get the addresses and stuff like that. I mean, but the fact of the matter is, I'll bring it up. I'll talk to the chairman of the Recreation Advisory Committee, and we'll see if there is what kind of remedy we want. We'll get the input from the other organizations as well. I think that's where it's best suited. I know what you're saying, Mike. That was the committee that recommended the ordinance change. But that being said, I think it would be better suited for that committee because they're actually pretty good. And we have a new member on the committee now. We didn't have it the last time. We didn't have wrestling on it the last time. I implemented that. They'd be on the committee, and now they're on it. So they're going to have another voice. And your concerns will be addressed. I think one of the things that frustrates not just the council members, a lot of individuals in the town is that, yes, these fields were built for a purpose for our residents to use. Fact of the matter is that state law, and you know the Green Acres laws, we can't just turn anybody away. But in regards to the soccer, it's a private organization, so I have to really see how we can really implement. Now, the council can implement a rule per team. So, and then it would definitely cure the situation that you're addressing. So.
With that information that you handed in, do you have statistics on how often these teams that are made up primarily of out-of-town residents use the fields?
I mean, I don't know exactly to tell one, but I do know, for example, the Intramural League, on their own website, I think they play like October to November or something like that, or November to December.
I have to end the discussion because your time's up. Okay.
Yeah, I would just be concerned
You
about
can't answer,
how
maybe you could
often
answer your
how often the fields are actually used by these out-of-town residents compared to the teams that are primarily made up of residents.
I can say right
Sir,
now.
I
Oh,
have,
thought you wanted
now
to
I have to
answer.
cut you off.
He's being asked the question.
Yeah, now I know.
Okay, can I, Jasmine, just while we're on the subject, because I had some notes that I wanted to ask you, but we're on the subject. And Mike alluded that the ordinance that's up for vote next week is a $1 license. Is that true? Because
My understanding, and I will check, is that we were going to charge them $500 a month.
$500 a month. Okay.
Plus they're responsible for paying all the utilities and for maintaining the lawn area surrounding.
Okay, that was my follow-up
the
question.
house.
Okay.
And usually during the soccer club, during their tournament, they pay for all the maintenance costs, and they reimburse the town.
I was just talking about the house that we're going to be.
Oh, the house, okay.
That we're licensing, because in the ordinance it didn't say, whose responsibility the upkeep was, as nor the price of the license fee.
I'll double check and get back to you on that.
Thank you.
Before I close the public, I just had a question for you on the energy. What happens now that we pass this, it goes forward, you have the opt-out rule? You had a person like Pat Pataccio who said she already uses a third party.
Right.
What if she's paying less? Is she going to be automatically put in this?
No, anyone who already has a third-party supply contract, they're not in to begin
Okay,
with.
I just wanted to.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. No, sir. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to close public.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Farrar, second by Mr. Karifi. Roll call.
Mr. Karifi.
Yes.
Mr. DePiero.
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara.
Yes.
Mr. Nelson.
Yes.
Mr. Stanton.
Yes, at this time, I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session.
Make a motion.
Motion by Mr.
Second.
Karifi, second by Mr. Nelson. Roll call.
Well, let's just state the purpose of the closed session is to discuss matters of prospective litigation and contract, which are matters appropriate for closed session under the law.
I'll second it again.
Roll call.
Mr. Karifi.
Yes.
Mr. DePiero.
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara.
Yes.
Mr. Nelson. Mr. Nelson. Mr. Nelson.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Mr. Stanton.
Yes. Resolution, whereas the Open Public Meeting Act, Public Law 1975, Chapter 231 permits the exclusion of the public from a meeting in certain circumstances, whereas Township Council is of the opinion that such circumstances presently exist, whereas the Township Council wishes to discuss matters of attorney-client privilege, whereas minutes will be kept once a matter involving confidentiality of the above no longer requires confidentiality, the minutes can be made public. Now therefore be it resolved by Township Council, Township Parsippany-Troy Hills, the public to be excluded from this meeting.
Second.
Motion by myself, second by Mr. Farrar. Roll call.
Mr. Karifi.
Yes.
Mr. DePiero.
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara.
Yes.
Mr. Nelson.
Yes.
Mr. Stanton.
Yes.
I'm not sure.
Good night, everyone, if you're not staying.
We're on.
This time I'll entertain a motion, go back on.
Make a motion.
Motion by Mr.
Second.
Karifi, second by Mr. DiPiero. Roll call.
Mr. Karifi.
Yes.
Mr. DePiero.
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara.
Yes.
Mr. Nelson.
Yes.
Mr. Stanton.
Yes. Recommendation for ultimate motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Mr. DiPiero, second by Mr. Karifi. Roll call.
Mr. Karifi.
Yes.
Mr. DePiero.
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara.
Yes.
Mr. Nelson.
Yes.
Mr. Stanton.
Yes. Good night, everyone that's still here. Good night, Lee.
Your name there. Good night, Lee.
Every time I do this, I drop it.